Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so excited for my next guest. She is an amazing entrepreneur, has a great story, and I know that you're going to absolutely love her. She is from across the pond, as they would say. Sarah J. Pitts, welcome to the program. I'm so excited to have you on. How are you?
Well, thank you very much. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I am doing great. You know, it's funny that the time difference change when we agree to something, sometimes I don't always think it through. And so while it's noon over there, it's 4 a.m. over here. Although I will say one of our past guests for this season, he actually came in studio at 4 a.m.
Wow.
I don't know how I got him in here. I think I bribed him with coffee. Probably not, probably wouldn't work with you.
No, I'm definitely tea. Offer me tea, I
Yeah.
would think about it, but it's a long way to go just for a 4 a.m. meeting.
It is, but I mean, the coffee's really good. I've had one gal tell me it's the best coffee she's ever had.
Well,
But you know, some people just say things because they want to be nice. So, Sarah, I really am interested about your story. Before we kind of dive into the background of everything, I'm curious, where are you today? Like, where are you recording from? Where do you live? And tell us a little bit more about what you're doing on the coaching side of things.
yeah, so I actually just moved house, so I'm actually in my new office. So, yeah, I'm in the UK, as you can probably tell. I live here. I have lived here all my life. Yeah, I've been coaching since I was 13 years old, so over 30 years now. And yeah, I'm coaching solo business owners who feel like stuck. They're just overwhelmed with everything because we start the idea of starting a business and we think, oh yeah, this is really exciting. I'm going to help loads of people. And then we kind of get buried in the chaos, in the busyness of doing the doing. And
Yeah.
for me, I really like holding people, like it's like pulling them back out and just going, hang on a minute, let's just take a look at this and see what's really important. And then off you go again. It's channeling that enthusiasm. And that's really what I tend to do is direct people, help them figure out what's causing them problems and just get past it quickly.
It's interesting as a coach, when you start working with people, most people focus on the action of everything. And very few people actually pull back long enough to see where they want to go. And a lot of people don't actually determine where they want to go, which you think it'd be, oh yeah, everyone does this. No, very, very few people actually think about the road that they're going on. Most of us are waking up in the morning and we're just taking the day as it comes. And we allow circumstances to form who we are versus saying, this is who I want to be through circumstances. I love that. I love that you're doing that. I love that people are having transformed lives by working with you. Where did you grow up? Now, you grew up in the UK, right? Outside of Leeds, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's a third biggest city in the UK. Everyone thinks that the UK is just London, but there is lots of other places outside of London that are very beautiful. It's very green. It's very open. There's lots of countryside around. And I grew up just there, basically. So it's kind of quiet. It's just easygoing. It's not the hustle and bustle of city life. But yeah, just a small town. Everybody knew everybody else. So I kind of struggled to figure out who I am. Kind of spent
Mm.
my life fitting in, which didn't really hit me until about 4 years ago. I was like, what am I doing with my life? But yeah, so I I spent my career in the fitness industry teaching, started out wanting to be a PE teacher because somebody said to me, oh, you make a really good physical education teacher. I was like, okay, I can do that. I like people, I like sport, I like teaching. Great. And then they failed me on my teaching practice at university. You guys call it college. And so I was like, well, I do like teaching, but maybe I don't like teaching groups of people. And so I kind of went into the personal training arena and then realized very quickly that people who just wanted to tone up and lose weight was really boring. There's only so many ways you can say, eat less, move more,
Yeah.
and
Be in a
before my
calorie
brain just
deficit.
started
Yeah.
going, that's, oh, come on, we can do more than this. And I'm about as flexible as a brick, and I always have been. So injuries was like, I had back pain at age 22, could never touch my toes. And then I was manipulated badly, like the chiropractic clunk click kind of movement,
Mm-hmm.
and it strained the ligaments in my spine. So
Mm.
I was age 22. I had hip pain, back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, you name it, foot pain. And I honestly thought I was going to be bionic by the time I was 40. And so I spent like 20 years learning about injuries, helping people through their injuries, ended up treating people in their injuries. And what I learned from that was basically that physical pain and emotional pain are the same thing.
Hmm.
And treating them is the same, for me, was always the same way, because my body got so sensitive to regular treatment that I couldn't have what normal people would have as an intervention. So I couldn't have osteopathy, I couldn't do physiotherapy, I couldn't do, all of those things where it is a really strong pressure on my body because it just wouldn't cope. And I
Hmm.
started to develop an approach to injuries that ended up, rather, because there's this thing of like, if you treating a problem, the regular way of doing it is irritate the problem because it will trigger the healing mechanism of the body, and then it will settle down and it will hopefully be better. Well, I was like, well, if it's sore, why would you want to poke it? Why make it worse? If I'm laying on the table going, and I don't want you to touch me, then trying to force my body to do something it doesn't want to do is
Hmm.
really not going to help. And so I started treating it from the opposite way. And what I discovered that after like COVID hit and I lost that business, and because I was starting to teach personal trainers about injuries, and totally wrong audience, whole nother story, transitioned into business to help business people. And what I realized was, as I'm doing exactly the same in business as I was doing for treating physical pain, because
Hmm.
when people are resistant to doing something, I've tried the push through it. I've tried the, oh, just get over yourself and do it anyway, all that kind of stuff. It just didn't work for me. I don't like putting myself out there. I feel very self-conscious about doing certain things. And what I
Hmm.
realized was, when there's a resistance to it, if you work with the resistance and make people feel confident in what they're doing, resistance goes away. And then you can just move forward so much quicker. And so now I really look at what people are doing and how they're feeling about what they're doing emotionally, create some emotional stability. We create some sense of confidence. We get rid of all of the doubt. Well, most of it, because you can't get rid of it completely. And then people just, they transform what they're doing because they're not resistant to that thing anymore. That thing
Hmm.
that was holding them back. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a long way round of answering your question, but that's kind of how my coaching journey evolved. It started like way long ago, and has gone through lots of different iterations, but ultimately has led me to where I am now.
I was really interested, when you were talking about where you grew up. In my head, I'm working to paint a picture. Like, did you grow up like countryside? You said small town. What were some of the things that you remember from youth? Like, going out and playing with your sister. I don't know, maybe you guys had that clash early on as kids and didn't like each other early on, but like, what was family like for you growing up? What were the dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, my mom and dad are still together now. We grew up with them. I actually live now just around the corner from where I grew up. So I've come back to the same village that I grew up in. Um, yeah, and because it was a village in the UK, when it's a really small place, there's less. I don't even know the figures of how many people there are that live here, but I can walk from one end of the village to the other in 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's quite small, and everybody seems to know everybody else. It's quite close knit. There's lots of community stuff going on. And when I was growing up, what that meant, because my family had quite a well-known business. We had you guys call it General Motors, but we have it as Vauxhall, and we had a franchise of that just on the edge of the village. And it was a big deal. They employed a lot of people in the village, and a lot of the family members were employed there too. And so everybody knew who my family were,
Hmm.
and I would meet people in the street and they'd be like, "Oh, you're Roger's daughter, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, who are you?" And so, because my sister's older than me, when I went to school, "You're Louisa's sister, aren't you?" Actually, no, I'm me, you know, you know. And so they kind of assumed that they knew who I was before they actually got to know me. And it
Mm.
wasn't until I had I think it was the fourth or fifth teacher at school that was like, "Oh, you're nothing like your sister, are you?" No, totally not. Chalk and cheese, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of people assuming that they knew me. So I'm anything for an easy life. You just don't want to rock the boat. That's like, that's, if there's a family motto, that's my family motto is don't rock the boat. Just get on with it. Keep your head down, work hard, all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, I think that's why I spent so much of my life not really knowing who I am.
Mm.
I'm not really sure I do now, but I've got a stronger sense of that now than I did before.
Well, I think it's true though, because a lot of the things that we learn in our early childhood, especially around our parents and around those who influence, we start to learn the way that they think, and we carry that along through our life. And so we think that things are exactly that way. Like what you were just saying of, like, I think there's a lot of people. My mother was kind of like that too, in the way of, don't rock the boat, don't make waves. And my mother was not one of those people. She created waves just by entering the room.
Okay.
How did that perception, or maybe it's still the same, but do you still have that same perception of don't rock the boat, or when did that start to change in your life to say, actually, you know what, maybe it is a good thing to make a couple waves here and there?
I don't know that I ever want to make waves because I don't like being the center of attention. And I think there's a lot of solo business owners that are like that. We just like helping people, and I figured out over the course of the 4 years really where my life kind of went, oh, what's all this about? You know,
Yeah.
I was like, actually, I'm much better as a second in command. I play a game with a lot of my clients and I'm like, imagine you're on a spaceship, right? So you can't get off and you've only got your close family and friends with you, right? What's your job on that spaceship? Like
Mm.
my sister is driving the ship. There's no two ways about that. She is driving the ship. My dad is the technical guy. He'll fix anything that's broken and he'll try and figure out problems that don't exist yet. He's a proper think about it kind of guy. I'm the one who's going, right, well, we need this and we need this and we need this. So make sure you've got that and you've got this. And, I'm the one who's navigating. I'm the one who's just making sure that everybody's got what they need in order to get on with what they're doing, you know? And
Yeah.
so
Where was your mom in the mix of that? What would her position have been on the rocket ship?
she is the person that's making sure everybody's okay. You
Mm.
know, she would definitely be making sure everything was clean. I'll give her that. She's she's really good at that. But she does. She makes sure that everybody's all right. They're happy in what they're doing, and and we're going where we want to go. That's the thing.
Mm.
So yeah, she is. If there's anybody who would be morph into the background, that's my mom. Right? She really doesn't like being the center of attention, and she will. I mean, she is the most loving, giving person ever. But she just doesn't like conflict. She doesn't like center of attention. She doesn't like any of that stuff, and I think that's probably where I get it from.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting because as you explain your family dynamic of where you guys are, where everyone sits in the rocket ship, we were talking earlier about this before we started the recording of Disc and how there's different personalities and how different personalities clash. And
Mhm.
and what's really interesting about that is your family was the complete picture of personalities. You had people that were outgoing and driven. You had analytical people who wanted to work on things and fix things. You had outgoing individuals that just wanted to shine. And then you had also individuals that just wanted to sit in the background, help, and just bring everyone together as a cohesive unit. So it's actually kind of cool to hear that. And as we were talking about that too, as you start to get different things within your life, like disc is a beautiful thing. It's like a pair of glasses. As soon as you put it on, you see all of these new intricacies of life, and then you can start to work with those in a different way. It's really cool to see how your family dynamics really probably did have a large effect on you growing up. I'm curious. I always love hearing odd jobs. What were some of the odd jobs that you remember when you were growing up, as you started moving towards a career? What were some of the odd things that you remember doing growing up?
My first paid job was what I call a washer-upper. So I worked in the UK. Fish and chip restaurants are, like it's a classic takeaway fish and chips. And I washed up in the back. So I would wash out the greasy pots where all the chip fat and all the teapots and all the rest of it. I did a paper round. So I deliver newspapers to people. It's not like it is in the US where they wrap it in plastic and they throw it on the thing. You have to put it in the letterbox. You have to actually walk up to the letterbox, put it in.
There's more steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally more steps.
Yeah, literally sometimes, yeah. What else did I do? I worked in a cheese shop. I worked in a toy shop.
You said something interesting. The first job you were paid for. What were the jobs that you weren't paid for?
Well, like we
Or were those just like household things?
Yeah. So we'd get pocket money for doing things around the house, like washing up or washing the car or, whatever it was. But my first outside of the house paid for a job, should I say.
Okay. I was like, wait a second. Were you swindled as a child?
No.
Had some child labor in there? So, and who were some of your early on influences? I know that your parents were big influences. If I remember correctly, you also said that one of your early influences was your physical education teacher.
I grew up being quite a tomboy, what I call a tomboy. So I really enjoyed doing all the boys' things and kicking footballs around, playing tennis, and cricket. All of the traditionally considered to be boys' sports. And because my primary school, so in the UK, we have primary school, which is 4 to 11, and then we have secondary school, which is 11 to 18. So we don't have middle school, junior high, any of that stuff. It's all, just 2 schools, basically. So when I was growing up in my primary school, so age 4 to 11, there was 3 classes in my whole school, and there was 30 kids in each class. So in my entire school, there was 90 kids. So we all did whatever anybody else was doing. There wasn't enough people to have, a boys' team and a girls' team. It was, no, everybody just join in, So it was a foreign concept to me when I went to my secondary school. It was 1,000 kids, in like 6 different classes per year group. I was like, oh my God, this is huge.
There's so many people.
Yeah, but the boys didn't want me to play. And I didn't really fit in with the girls because they all had their group of friends from different schools. And there was me and 2 other kids that came from my school to the high school. And I was like, okay. So sport was always my thing. I really enjoyed running about, chasing a ball.
And did you have a specific sport in secondary?
No, I played cricket. I was instrumental in getting girls rugby into the school.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I played rounders. Yeah. Also, rounders for us is very similar to softball for you. So obviously, with the rounders, you play with a smaller ball and a smaller bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same kind of thing. But yeah, my physical education teachers allowed me to spend my lunch times and breaks in school with them, helping the kids who were younger than me. So it was kind of my safe place, really. I didn't have to pretend to fit in with any of the other kids. I didn't have to go and sit with the girls who were all laughing and joking about stuff I didn't care about. I didn't have to feel rejected from the boys not wanting me to play with them. So I just kind of found my sanctuary with the in a way, and I was just helping them. So that was one of the reasons. But also they didn't judge me. They didn't try and make me into something I wasn't. I was just helping them. They were allowing me to be there and just be me, really. And then one of them became my form teacher in the general classroom on a morning when you're taking the register and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was quite instrumental in my wanting to be a physical education teacher, really.
So in your when you were in secondary, that was really when you started to fall in love with the idea of instruction and teaching and coaching. So when you went from secondary to university, what made you choose to go more the physical education route?
It was just something that I'd always wanted to do. I think I was 14 when somebody said to me, "You'd make a really good physical education teacher." I was like, well, I can't think of anything better to do. It ticks all the boxes, so that sounds good to me. I wanted to be a vet, and then I realized you had to be really smart, and I'm like, I'm not that clever. And then
You're not
I went
supposed to
and
kill the animals.
yeah. And then I went and did a 2-week work experience in a veterinary practice. I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. So I was like, what do I do? You know, and that, I think if nobody had said to me about being a teacher or anything like that, I would have had no clue what I wanted to do when I left school. So, and I think that would have been really hard. And I really feel for the people who are in that situation now, you know, and they don't know what they want to do, because it's an intimidating place to be.
So, so what happened when you were at university? Because things didn't go exactly the way that you planned when you were going through university, correct?
Yeah. So I got to uni, and everybody was being interviewed for the place at university, and everybody was coming out of their interview like, oh, they've been asking me about the national curriculum, which is like the teaching stuff. Nobody had ever even shown me a national curriculum. I don't even know what it is. So when I got into my interview, they were asking me why I chose English over maths or the other way around. And I was like, okay, so these are really easy questions. I was like, yeah, this is good. And in my first year, everybody's kind of gets an easy ride, because everybody's like getting into being at university and getting into the swing of things. And then on my second year teaching practice, so we had to go into school and teach for 6 weeks. So my college degree, what you would say, and my university degree was 4 years, because it was interspersed with teaching practices of like 6 weeks. I had one in my first year and then another one in my second year. And I had to repeat my one in my second year because they said, you know, we're not seeing enough of what we need to see from a teaching perspective, you know. And they put me in a school where I'd never played the sport that they were asking me to teach. And they gave me a group of girls who were national champions in this sport to teach. And it was netball. And I'm like, I don't understand why I can't move my feet when I've got the ball, and why I can't throw it from one end of the court to the other. If I can, why can't I do that? Stupid game. So they were like, actually, no, my first experience with those girls was, because the way we'd always done it at school was like one team got bibs, like a colored bib, and the other team didn't. So I went into this netball class going, right, this group get orange bibs and you guys don't bother. And they'd be like, but miss, how do we know which position we're going to play? Why, oh. Okay, this is not as easy as I was hoping. Yeah, so they failed me. They asked me to repeat the practice. And then when they said, I don't think teaching's for you. Okay, well, I'm glad I didn't listen to that, because I really love teaching. I'm not very good at teaching kids who don't want to be there, and groups of kids that don't want to be there. Now, I'm not very good at, like, if multitasking, I say in the book, if multitasking's a gene, it missed me out, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's no such thing in my brain as multitasking. I can't do two things at once. So if I've got a group of kids and I'm focusing on one group doing this and another group doing that, I'm totally ignoring that group and I'm just focusing on this group. So I find one-to-one much easier.
Yeah.
And so when they said to me, I don't think teaching's for you, I was like, actually, I do like teaching, but what do I like about it? And that's what led me into personal training and the whole injury side of things. So
Interesting. So how long were you doing personal training and injury prevention?
about 20 years.
Wow. What were some of the, like, it's fascinating to me, because when you find yourself in a career doing something like that, you really do throw yourself into it. And sometimes you wake up one day and you go, how in the world did I get here? And then sometimes you wake up one day and it's not there and you say, well, how in the world did I get here? For you, what was the shift that happened for you that kind of altered your world, right? Like, I love the crucible moments of people's lives when life heats up and things start to change and it seems like it's out of control. There's an opportunity where you can either make, as I've been hearing a lot recently, you can make lemons or lemonade out of lemons. What was the situation that was sour for you, and how did you make that into something amazing?
Well, like I said before, I started to develop, fast forward a few years through the personal training into the sports injury treatment, how I got people to stop leaping around and start laying on the table in their sessions, I have no idea. But, they did. So thank you for that.
The baseball bat helped a lot.
Yeah, so I switched from the personal training into the sports injury treatment full time. And once I started developing the movements and creating these movements to help people do their own treatments at home, I started putting it online, and then people would come back to me and they were, oh, well, I got that pain, but I did those exercises you gave me and it went away again. And I was like, so maybe if you did the exercise in the first place, the pain wouldn't come. So that's when I realized that I could teach personal trainers and fitness coaches and sports coaches how to use these movements in their warm-ups and their cool downs and as part of what they're doing already. And I spent probably about 8 years doing that, trying to make that business work. I got my courses approved internationally by the fitness industry. I wrote a best-selling book. I did a lot of things to try and gain the credibility for what I was doing. But the industry itself was so resistant to the people in the industry, was so resistant to what I was doing because it went against everything that the fitness industry was saying. So when COVID hit, I just about made it profitable. And then the personal trainers lost their businesses overnight. And so it all just vanished. And I'm like, well, I spent my whole life from when I was 13 right to when I was, 30, 40, whatever. And who am I now? All that is gone. What do I do? Who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I really want? And fortunately, I was in a position where somebody offered me a paid job, like to go and work with them. And it gave me the brain space. It gave me the financial cushion to really have a think about it and not really rush any of that. And so me talking to you now is like an emergence from that, and shifting. I've totally forgotten what the question is now, but I'm totally that point of losing everything. And it was almost like I lost my identity that I created for myself, but then realized that it wasn't an identity that I actually wanted. And so I spent the next couple of years, 3-4 years, trying to figure out, who am I? What am I doing? What do I really love about me? What do I really love about helping other people? What do I care about? And I care about a lot of things, and it was really difficult to pin it down. And I had to, I went through a lot of the disc, and, I'm a massive introvert, and I had to learn all about that before moving on to the next bit about me and really getting to know and like myself. And it's really interesting because, you hear people say, in business that people need to know, like, and trust you. But if you don't know, like, and trust yourself, and that's what I figured out. I was like, actually, I don't even like myself. I don't know myself. How am I supposed to put myself out there for anybody else to know and like if I don't even know what that is? So
what was that journey like? Because I love that you say that, because I think it's true. A lot of people, have heard that people won't work with you until they know, like, and trust you. But there really is this piece of, do you know you? Do you like you? Do you trust you? And it's not an overnight thing where, you wake up all of a sudden one morning, after, going through all of the different things of going through university and school and getting a job and working a career. It's not like one day you wake up and you go, oh, look, I understand who I am. There's a lot of work that goes in to that. What were some of the practices that you had to put in place in order to really understand who you are? Because I'm always fascinated by that, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. Not every way is the best way for one person. And so, if someone's listening right now and they say, man, I wonder how I could do that. I feel like I've been in my job. I feel like I've been doing this a long time, and I don't feel like I know who I am. I don't think I trust myself. I don't think that I have valued myself over the years. What were some of the practices and what were some of the functional things that you did to start to understand who you really were and to fall in love with who you were?
Yeah, I think first of all, I started with what other people used to tease me about when I was growing up, you know?
Hmm.
So I've always been sensible Sarah. It was always the thing because we spoke before about me being around adults a lot. So, you know, when kids were playing imaginary games, I still don't even understand it now. You know, when like my partner Pete, he's got grandkids, and when they were little, you know, they're like, "Oh, play this imaginary tea game with me." I'm like, "Oh, do I have to?" You know,
Can we just have
just
real tea?
yeah. I mean, I just don't relate to that kind of stuff, and I really struggled with that growing up. So
Mm.
I was teased quite a lot about being sensible Sarah. So you see these cartoon characters behind me. That one in the middle is Sensei Sarah, and that's me, because I'm, you know, people say, you know, oh, you're so insightful, and you so they trust what I say because I am sensible, because I'm reliable, because I am all of these things that people used to use against me. And I started to embrace that. And I
Mm.
really started to think of that being a positive thing. And making the cartoon characters was my way of just having a bit of fun about it. So that, you know, because everybody's so sensible about business and it's so serious, and oh, the fitness industry, trying to have a joke with the fitness industry was just impossible. So I'm just like, okay. So, but that's me. That, you know, I quite like simple, light-hearted, bright colors, cartoons. You know, one of my favorite films is Kung Fu Panda. I feel like I am Kung Fu Panda. I just bumble my way through life and kind of end up doing something that's quite fun. And, you know, I'm reasonable at it, you know, and I think a lot of people relate to that. So I kind of had to do that. And I also tried to find books and communities of people who are similar to me. So I know I'm listening, you know, listen to people that I really love, like Brené Brown and Oprah Winfrey and people like that who, you know, talk about really powerful issues and really exploring people that they'd had on their podcast. There was a lady called Jen Granneman who was on Brené Brown's podcast, and she wrote The Secret Lives of Introverts. And so I
Mm.
was like, oh, that sounds like me. I really need to read this. And so I started reading that kind of thing. I was like, oh, so maybe I'm an introvert and maybe this and maybe that. And every time I went to explore a new area, it all started to kind of make sense, and it all started to filter through. And I really just, it wasn't like you said, it wasn't like one moment I woke up and went, oh, wow, aren't I amazing? It was actually, I'm all right. I'm okay. I can, you know, I like myself. I like these things about me that maybe I've always hidden before,
Mm.
you know, because it didn't suit the audience or the group or the people that I was with, because I was fitting in. So when I put my business online, when I choose to put, you know, to do, I'm starting from scratch, I could choose anything, my business. I was like, well, I can find people who like me for being me. Not, I don't have to fit in with anyone. And
Yeah.
that was quite freeing, quite intimidating, but quite freeing.
Well, I love what you say about that because there's this there's a playful curiosity about life. And when we do get into career, especially if you've gone through, you know, a 4-year university or a school, a lot of people become serious all of a sudden. And life is so serious and we take things so seriously. As adults are just this way. They
Mhm.
lose their way at some point in life because someone said you need to grow up, you need to make sure that you know you're responsible. And yes, you do have to be responsible to an extent. You have to pay your bills, you got to make some money somewhere. But there is something about this idea of playful curiosity, being playful in every aspect of your life, actually enjoying life. Have you always been like playful, you know, growing up? I mean, I know you said that you were serious, that you always liked interacting with the adults, but was there also like a playful curiosity to how you lived life and just really being fascinated and interested in different things? Like it seems like things you were drawn to were things that you were really playfully curious about, whether that was physical education, or whether that was going into physical therapy, it seems like you had this, maybe it wasn't intentional, but it was something innately in you that just drew you out and said, "Oh, I'm fascinated by that. I want to learn more about that. I want to have fun with that." Does that strike a chord with you?
I don't know if I would have used the word fun. Um, but
Joyful?
why has been my favorite word since I was 4 years old. You know, I remember driving my dad to the point he's like, if you say why one more time, but why? So I've always been curious about stuff. And I think I've been drawn into areas of life where I get to explore the boundaries. I get to see where things go, you know, and the movement stuff that I was doing was a huge part of that because I wasn't following a specific method. I was exploring what the bodies could do and what they couldn't do and why they couldn't do it. So I didn't really accept, oh, well, if I can't move my arm that way, then I just can't move it, which is what a lot of people do. It's like, oh, well, if it won't go that way, then maybe it'll go that way, or maybe it'll go that way, and let's just have a play with it and see. You know, it's why it got nicknamed wiggling, because I would be like, oh, put your body in this position, you know, just have a bit of a wiggle and, you know, just move around. You can't move wrong. You're not going to make it worse. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off people. Especially when they're reluctant to move something because it's going to hurt them. You know, they anticipate that pain. I know that feeling well. Psyching yourself up to turn over in bed or, you know, bend over to put your socks on or something like that. It's horrible. I won't wish it on anybody. But
Yeah.
when you can take that away, I'd be like, okay, so if you can't move that way because it hurt, where can you move to? And that's really interesting to me. That's what I find fun, is exploring those things that it just takes away all of the regular conventional way of thinking about it. So yeah, I suppose it's never really occurred to me before, but yeah, I think that's what
Well,
I've been doing, is just taking an unconventional approach.
Well, it's interesting because even just looking at you, like your face lights up when you talk about that. When it, the wiggling of like just trying to not even necessarily make sense of things, but to find a different way, right? Because growing up, we're told this is what you need to do, this is how you should be. And it really isn't until you understand who you are and who you were created to be. When you understand those things are great. I think it was Jim Rohn that said, the greatest day in your life is the day that you discover why you were made. And I love that. And I've always taken it one step further. It's not just why you were created to be that way, but then you start living the way you were created to be. Because I think some of us, there's something deep down inside of us that says, hey, we should go do this. We should try this over here. I was just talking to a woman, it wasn't too long ago, maybe a couple months ago, and one of her dreams is to have a yarn business. But she doesn't want to shop. She wants to have it in the back of a trailer that she can pull up to different places, and she'll have all this yarn inside of it. And then people can come and she can teach them to crochet, or she can teach them to knit. It's something that she absolutely loves. And as we started to talk about it, you see her face light up. And that I see that same exact thing with you of you light up when you talk about this idea of wiggling, of finding the things that bring you joy. The things that bring you joy may not be the same things that bring me joy. And that's completely fine. But there is a piece that as you start living that out, life all of a sudden really does become enjoyable. Now, you said Sensei Sarah. I'm curious. Did you do martial arts in your background?
Yeah.
What was that? I'm fascinated by that.
It's a martial art that's not very well known. It's called Tang Sudo, and it sounds and is very similar to Taekwondo, but there's no contact, which sounds completely ridiculous for a martial art. But what I have taken away from that is that you have more control when you don't hit something than when you do. So Taekwondo is all about the strike and making that strike register on pads and things like that. But those people used to come to our martial arts and they terrified me because they had no control. So they'd put a kick that went whizzing past your nose, but if you moved, they couldn't stop. Yeah. Whereas the Tang Sudo approach is to go this close and stop. So I could put a speedy kick around and just tap your forehead here. In fact, I did that once. Shouldn't have tapped his forehead, but I had the control to stop enough to just tap his forehead. So yeah.
Some people, you want to give them just a little bit more than just a tap,
Yeah.
just to make sure that they understand. I could still do something if I needed to. That's
Yeah,
funny because I've actually heard of Tang Sudo, so that's really cool that you
Cool.
do that. You said that you're the scaredest black belt that you'll ever meet.
Oh, I'm a scaredy
Tell-
cat black belt. Yeah, totally.
what is that?
Well, if somebody's going to pick on me, I'm going to run away. I don't, I will stand and fight if I have to, but I would much rather run away.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Why is that?
I just have never liked conflict.
Hmm.
What I noticed, because during the time when I lost my business, I was so emotionally burned out that I couldn't. The energy of people who were in a bad mood or wanted something from me, or I read energy in people. That's how I was treating sports injuries. And I just couldn't cope anymore with that energetic overwhelm. And that conflict and that aggression and all that just is a reflection of that. And so I just don't enjoy being around that energy. So if somebody's coming at me with aggression, then I will just leave, because I can't do that anymore.
That's interesting. So as you look back and you were talking recently about this, the relationship with your sister. Your sister is you don't want to make waves. Your sister's the one that makes waves.
Oh yeah.
You don't want
Yeah,
conflict.
yeah.
She's the one that loves conflict, right? She starts conflict
No,
just because there's no conflict.
I wouldn't do that. She likes to explore the boundaries, but she runs at the boundaries rather than just gently prodding them, So she used to when she was a kid. She's very different now. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how has your relationship with your sister Louisa, how has that morphed and changed? Because that's interesting to me, just in terms of the relationships. Because some people, we look at our past relationships. So like this last weekend, I was just at one of my class reunions. So everyone from our secondary school or my high school got back together and we got to see each other. And there was one particular person who I wasn't looking forward to seeing. I saw his name on the list. I was like, I don't really like this guy. We didn't get along back then. And there was other history within that. But then I started to talk to him and there was an understanding. Then I got to see. And I was like, oh, this is how you're wired. This is who you are. I misunderstood who you are. And so I can value who you are now. In fact, he's changed a lot even since those days. I'm curious, how has understanding helped to morph that relationship between you and your sister today? And how has that made you a different person?
It's really interesting, actually, because at the same time I was going through what I went through with the business, Louise was going through having 2 kids who are like me and her. So she could see through them the relationship that we had growing up. And I was starting to learn about DISC and starting to learn about different communication styles. And so it's kind of like we didn't do it at the same time, but it was very similar, very close together. She started to understand how her communication was impacting her kids. And I started to understand how people had been communicating with me and my perception of them when I was growing up. So it kind of happened at the same time. And so we started to be a bit more open-minded about each other, a bit more respectful about how the other was thinking and communicating and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of did that at the same time. So it's been really interesting talking to her about the whole thing. I think we can be a lot more open now than we could before. So yeah, I mean, we'll always be different people. And I think now we've got to a level of communication where we understand where the other is coming from most of the time. And it's much more forgiving. It's a lot gentler. It's a lot easier to be around her. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting as you start growing up and you get different things. I've always said that we kind of have backpacks. As we go through life, we put things in our backpack. It gets heavier. The relationships that we've had, sometimes the stupid mistakes that we've made. we kind of tuck those away in our backpack, and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier until at one point you just realize you can't walk anymore. And you have to start unloading some of those things, letting things go, whether that's, an argument you had with someone a long time ago, or, it was funny that this last weekend when I was talking with some of my old classmates, I said, oh yeah, I remember this one guy. He owed me $20. He still owes me $20, but I let that go. And it's funny because in the back of my head, even though I joke about that, every time this person's name shows up in my head, I immediately think this guy owes me $20. Even though I've said he doesn't owe me $20, I still think, oh yeah, well, like I remember that I gave him that $20 and he said he was going to be paying me back and he never did it. But we carry that, and it's this mental space that gets taken up inside of our minds, recording some of those injuries, mental injuries that we've really taken blows from over the years. As you look back on your life, what is the silver lining that you've seen of who is Sarah? That, if someone were to come up to you and meet you on the street, what would be the one thing that you would want people to know and understand about you?
That's a really difficult question. I have heard many times over the years that people feel like I'm a safe space. So when I was treating injuries, when I'm helping business owners now, they feel like I'm that safe place where they can come and just explain everything or say what they need to say and get things done. So I suppose I really appreciate that. It touches my soul when people say that. It's like if I had to be known for anything, then that would probably be it.
I love that. And it is so important to have that space. There are people like yourself. I can relate with that also, that, my wife and I will be sitting in a room with someone that we've just met, and all of a sudden they're pouring out their story. They're telling me things that they've never told anyone before. And she just looks at me and she's, what in the world did you do? Like, how do you do this? This always happens. People are always telling you about all these intimate things about their life. Like, I don't understand this. And I don't know. There is something about that space that when you can create a safe space for people just to be who they were created to be, then I think that's where the transformation starts to happen. When we can be free to explore different aspects of our personality, free to explore some of the dreams that maybe we've let go over the years. So I absolutely love that. I think that's an incredible answer. And I think that it was a lot easier than maybe there was a lot of work to get up to that answer that you've done in the past, but I love the answer. Sarah, I've loved having you on the program, getting to know your story, getting to know you. I have one more question for you here, but before we jump into that question, for those of you listening in, would you, someone told me recently, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. He said, I don't know, are you supposed to smash it? And I said, well, I don't know. Do you smash it? Is that what it's called nowadays? I don't know. I can't keep up with the trends. But would you subscribe? Would you like? Would you comment? Let Sarah know one of the takeaways that you really loved about this. And if you love the conversation that we've had and you're interested in more of the work that she does, could I encourage you to go and check out her book, grab a copy of it. She is an international best-selling author of the book, How to Stop Doing It All, which, by the way, I think that we all need to learn how to stop doing it all, because we try to do too much in life. And when we do too much, we get spread thin, and then we get frustrated with life of why don't we have the capacity to do the things that we really love? It's because we don't have the ability to focus. Like she was saying earlier, you can't multitask. It has been scientifically shown and proven that you cannot multitask. It's just switching between tasks. And if you're like me, you suck at switching between tasks. So really, check out the book. Go find her. She has some great content. You can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her all over the place. She's easy to find. Sarah, this conversation has been so wonderful. It's been so rich. I want to ask you a question I haven't asked anyone yet on the show, which is, what does it mean to you to be more than before? What has your journey taught you in life that if there was one lesson that could help one of the listeners, someone listening in today, that want to be more than they've been in the past, what would that one lesson be that would encourage them to lean in to who they're created to be?
I think clarity. You can do more, but you can't be more until you get clear on who that is and where you're going, and what your foundations are. And I think everything is the same in business, it's the same in life. Things start to go wrong when your foundations are not clear. So yeah, I think being more than before is getting clear on your foundations and taking action.
I love it. It's so perfect. Thank you all for listening in, for joining in on the conversation. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. And leave us a comment of what you'd like to see moving forward. Maybe you want to connect with Sarah. She'll read the comments. I'll read the comments. We want to read your comments. So please leave us a comment. Until next time, remember to be more, see more, and experience more than before.